This Shabbos Parshas Beshalach, Shabbos Shira. I therefore would like to designate today's shir in discussing some halachic aspects, some halachas negeya to the shira. Sai in the part of the Kriyas HaTorah, the shira that we learn tomorrow in the Kriyas HaTorah, the Bal Koirei, and Sai in general the halachas negeya to the shira of the day-to-day shira that we say every day as Yasher. Just as an introduction in the general idea of the shira, the Ramban in Parshas Vayelech on the pasuk Va'atu Kisvu Lachem Es Hashira Azois, which is going on the Shiras Hazinu, the Ramban explains with what is the shira of Hazinu, what makes it more than just Parshas Hazinu, what makes it into a shira. Why is it a shira? It's Parshas Hazinu. And the Torah calls it Va'ata Kisvu Lachem Es Hashira Azois, it's a shira. Explains the Ramban. I want to quote the Lashon. The reason it's called the Nikra Shira, says the Ramban of Parshas Vayelech, the Noimar Tamid B'Shiru B'Zimra. When it's read, it should be said with song, B'Shiru B'Zimra. But says the Ramban more, V'chei Nichtava Kashira. Not only when you say it, should you say it with a nigun, with a shira, but it's also written like a shira. How is it written like a shira? Ki ashirim, that whenever the Torah has a shirim, yichtuvem hefsik, a blank space, b'makoymes ha'ne'ima, the place where you're supposed to sing should be blank. That's not our minhag to sing in between by the blanks, but the reason why the shiras are written with a blank, Sayin Parshas Hazinu, this week's Parsha, the blank is the place where you're supposed to sing. And that's actually the shira. The shira is to sing in between the words. To explain a little bit more the blanks, the in-between, again we see from the Ramban that it's shira because you sing, and the shira really is the singing, the in-betweens, the blank space. Rabbi Yitzchak Cairo, which was an uncle of the Beis Yosef, he explains the reason why these blank spaces in between by Shira, by Hazinu, this week's Parsha Yasher, Parshas Chukas, what's the blank space? He says that really these be'etzim a problem for us to say Shira to the Eibishter. To say a little bit of Shira, it's a genai. This is all the Shira you're saying. To say a lot of Shira, so you covered all the shvachim of the Eibishter, so what should we do? A little bit of shira we can't say, a lot of shira we can't say. So he says, what we do is we leave the in-betweens blank, and the Yavei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the Eibishter should be mashlam. We say a little bit of shira, and the Eibishter should be mashlam the rest of the shira. Maybe that's what the Ramban means, what we sing. The singing is with our words. The Eibishter says the shira, but that's what he explains why it is a blank. The blank is for the Eibishter to fill in the blanks, the shira. Just on a side note, why isn't this in-betweens, the singing, the blanks that we sing, that used to be such a minhag, or at least that the Ramban explains the shira, why is that not a hefsek? Your middle saying, reading in the Torah, why is that not a hefsek? It could be it's b'chlal not a shayla, because that's the shira. The shira lav dafkas with words is singing also. But I want to share with the olam a bir aloch in Hilchas Nesias Kapayim. By Birchas Kahanim, the bir aloch brings the minhag that almost all of us have to say the Ratzon and the Rebbeinu Shalom, the Yiratzon, after each pasuk, before the Kohen says V'yishmerecha, you say the Yiratzon, Rebbeinu Shalom. So these different monogams, some Bialacha brings, some are quiet. When the Kohen is quiet, B'shas, the Kahal is saying the Yiratzon, and some sing. And the Bialacha says that it's, if you sing, he understands why there's no hefsek, because the singing is actually a part of, it's a beginning of, a part of starting already the V'yishmerecha. So B'etzim, the same thing would be over here also. The singing is part of the shira, part of the words before, part of the words afterwards. So far, this was just an introduction explaining the shira. The shira is because it sang, and how the Ramban says it sang in between the blanks. Where does the Shira start from? Our Shira, Shiras Az Yasher. Where does the Shira start from, and where does the Shira end? So let's first start with where the Shira ends. The end of the Shira, there's a pasuk Yotes. After Hashem Yimloich La'olam Vayit, the pasuk says, Kiva sus paroi berichboi v'rashav hayom, v'yashav Hashem aleim esmei hayom, uvnei Yisrael holchu b'yabasha b'seich hayom. That last pasuk Yotes, is a part of the Shira. The reason to think maybe it's not part of the Shira, because Lamaisa, it's written a little different than the other psukim. The other psukim is Micha Moicha Ba'elam Hashem, Ki Yigo, Yimincha Hashem, Nedori B'Kayach. It's speaking about praises of the Eibusher. This really sounds more historically what happened. Ki Vasos Pari Rich V'Rosh Vayam. It's saying what happened in the history when Pari went in and then the water went back and they drowned it. These are machlokes rishonim. If this pasuk Yotes is part of the Shira, we'll see soon. It's a big nafka min halacha. If this pasuk Yotes is part of the Shira, the Even Ezra learns that it's part of the Shira, and he understands the Pirush Amilis of this pasuk of Kivasus Paroi is saying that he was a Morid Ganes. Exactly the last second when the last Yid went out of the Yam, at that same time, the last guy went into the Yam. It was at the same time. Kivasus Pari Rich Rosh Vayam and Uvnei Yisrael Holcha B'Yabasha, that both happened at the same time, and then the water went back and covered over the Mitzrayim. So it is part of the Shira, and the Shira that we're saying is that there was a nest at the same time that the last Yid went out, the last guy went, the Mitzri went inside. That's what Even Ezra learns. The Ramban brings this Even Ezra, and the Ramban says, the Lashon Ramban, Einenu Kaloshen Ashira v'Hanavuos. It's not part of the Shira, it's not part of the Shira. And now the Ramban explains, there's even another pshat that it's going on Lahaba. That's why Vatikach Miri Manavia, because of this. But it's more as an history. They said the Shira. When did they say the Shira? Kivasos Pari. That was the time they said the Shira. What's the nafkamina if it's part of the Shira or not part of the Shira? How do you write that pasuk? The halacha is, the Gemara Megillah, the Gemara says that when you write the Shira, depends what Shira, but the Shiras are written Levena al Gaba Ariach al Gaba Levena, which means blanks on top of where it's written al Gaba on top of where it's blank. The Shiras Hazinu is two columns and the blank in the middle. Az Yasher has words, blank words, and then the words are written under the blank. You take a look. This last pasuk Yotes, is it written like a Shira, or is it written regularly? And Lenafka Bina, you're saying regularly. Why do you say that? You assume like that.
If it wasn't, then you wouldn't ask the question. It'd be obviously part of the Shira.
The truth is, you take a look in the Chumash. Here, Menachem. Take it. While Menachem looks at the tikkun, I want to tell you the Rambam says that if something that's part of the Shira that you write regular, or something that's regular and you write the way it's Shira, it's possible. The Sefer Torah is possible. Also, it's written like a Shira. Yeah. Written like a Shira, which means these spaces. Even the last line, Vayashav Hashem Aleim Esmei Hayom, space, Uvnei Yisrael Holcha B'Yabasha, space, B'soich, space Hayom. So we have a machlokes rishonim, and it's an afkamida lahalacha if the Sefer Torah is kosher, which way you write it. Another chiluk would be also is we say the Shira with a nigun. So the shaila is if this pasuk also is said. That I would be curious. You'll check it out Shabbos what the Balkaira does. This last pasuk if it's said with a Shira. But again, the nafkamina would be clearly if this last pasuk Yotes Kivasos Paroi is written like a Shira. We have machlokes rishonim. Interesting to note is a story when Rabbi Shulei Diskin became the Rav in Brisk. He was 28 years old, and the Lamdan came over to Rabbi Shulei to discuss this machlokes rishonim, the Even Ezra and the Ramban, if it's part of the Shira or not. And he said, I have a raya that it's not part of the Shira. What's my raya? The Avudraham, and it's brought in halacha, says that when the last pasuk of the Shira you koifel, you say it twice, which is, it's brought in the Ramah, in the halacha is Siman Nun Aleph, which is the halachas of Psukah de Zimra, Siman Nun Aleph, Siv Zayin in the Ramah. The Ramah says that the pasuk of Hashem Yimloich, you koifel, you say it twice. Just like Koil HaNashama Ta'alal Ka, you say it twice because that's the end of the Psukah de Zimra. So the end of the Shira, you say Hashem Yimloich twice. Hashem Yimloich is actually the pasuk Yud Ches, before the pasuk of Kivosas Parei. So he said, I have a raya that it's not part of, that the last pasuk is not part of the Shira Kivosas Parei. He brought another raya, interesting raya. In Siddur Rab Amram Goyin, Rab Amram Goyin says the reason why we have 18 brachas in Shemay Esrei is keneged the 18 psukim in the Shira. The 18 psukim. Lamaisa, this pasuk is pasuk Yotes, is the 19th pasuk. So he says, I have a raya that Kivosas Parei is not part of the Shira. Reb Shua Leib enjoyed the rayas. What did he say?
Take off the first pasuk.
Oh, very good. Morty, we're going to get to that mamash in a minute to discuss the first pasuk. Very good. Let's get to that in a minute. I wanted to first speak about the last pasuk. It's a little bit more in length, then we'll get to the first pasuk. Az Yasher. Reb Shua Leib was very excited to these rayas that it seems that the last pasuk is not part of it, and he also brought a raya from a Mordechai in Sukkah and Perek Lulav Agaz, which says also that you koifel the pasuk Hashem Yimloich, again like he mentioned, like was mentioned before, that Hashem Yimloich would be the last pasuk in the Shira. So this Lamdan was excited. I have rayas and the Rav was maskim to me that the last pasuk is not part of the Shira, and he told him Shuleb, let's change the Sifrei Torahs. As Menachem showed us, it's in the Tikkun, and most Sifrei Torahs are written like that the last pasuk is written like a Shira, this pasuk Yivosas Parei. And as we mentioned, the Rambam says that if you write it in a Shira when it's not a Shira, the Sefer Torah is possible. So he said, we have rayas that it's not kosher, let's change how the Sefer Torahs are written. So Reb Shua Leib got very angry in his Dadeya, how they write it. And Reb Shua Leib said, Chas v'shalom, not to change what we have in the Messiah of Sefer Torah. Even though these are machlokes rishayim, but you don't change. Lamaisa, this person, he was excited and he wanted to make a tumult, so he went around to the Seifrim to tell them to change. Lamaisa, it's not a kosher Sefer Torah. Reb Shua Leib warned them not to make any changes. And Lamaisa, they bring this story written, is that Friday morning he went to the mikveh, and he had a heart attack in the mikveh, and he was nifter. Mida keneged mida of the pasuk Kivosas Parei Bayom, so he was nanash b'mayim. Pretty scary not to change. If Lamaisa the Messiah is to be written in the Sefer Torah, and that's not how we have it, B'losh and Shira, you keep it that way. So we have a machlokes Rishonim if it's part of the Shira or not. The Machzas HaShekel also brings different rayas, lakan, big machlokes, and the Machzas HaShekel says that most of our Sefer Torahs are written taka with a Shira, and you should keep it that way. Now, let's take a look with the beginning of the Shira. The end of the Shira, it's a clear machlokes Rishonim, Ezra and Ramban, if that pasuk is part of the Shira. What's about the first pasuk? Az Yasher Moshe, which would also seem, at least the first part of the pasuk is not the Shira. Introduction, very good. What's the introduction? Oz Yasher Moshe Bnei Yisrael Shiras Hayom. Then, when they went in, then that's when they said, what did they say? They said, Ashira Lashem Ki Go Go. Interesting even more, if you take a look, sign the Chumash, in the Tikkun Kairim, in the Sefer Torah, the first line is written regularly. It's a full line, no spaces. Oz Yasher Moshe is written regularly. Is the first pasuk part of the Shira, which means even though the first half of the pasuk is an introduction, the second half, Lamaisa, is already saying Shira. So the Talmidim of the Brisker Rav quote the Brisker Rav saying that it's part of the Shira, and he has two rayas. First, a raya which is, I guess, more mafurish from the Rambam, and the Rambam says also in Hilchas Sefer Torah, which if I may have left out, the Rambam when he brings in Perek Ches of Hilchas Sefer Torah, the end of Perek Ches, the Rambam shows how to write the Shira, and he includes the last pasuk also as part of the Shira. But back to the first pasuk, Oz Yashar is a part of the Shira. The Rambam says like this in Alach Yud Aleph. The Shiras Hayom has 30 lines. Shloshim Shitim. And the Rambam says, at the end of Perek Ches, Shiras Hayom Koisem Oisa B'Shloshim Shitas, Shita Rishoyna Kedarka, which means the Shira already starts with the first line, but it's part of the Shira. Shita Rishoyna Kedarka, regular line. V'Shara Shita is Menichem Be'emtze Revach Echad. The whole cheshbon, you leave blanks, and you skip your blanks, and you write, and blanks on top of where it's written on top of the blanks. Acha Timsa, fine. Says the Rambam, V'zui Tzurasa, Oz Yasher Moshe V'nei Yisrael, and then he goes through how to go through the whole Shira. So you see clearly that the Rambam counts the words of Oz Yasher part of the Shira. Another raya is a raya from a medrash. The Medrash says, I'll read you, quote the Lashon, Medrash Rabbah over here, Oz Yasher Moshe, Omar Moshe, Ba'oz Chatasi. Moshe Rabbeinu said, I was chayte with Oz, Sha'amarti, Umei Oz, Ba'asi al Parei, Heirul Amazeh. Kaviyach was a chutzpah, wasn't kahoigin how Moshe spoke. That's what Moshe said, Chatasi with the word Oz, but Oz ani Omer Shira, which seems that the Oz is part of the Shira. So even though the end of the Shira is a Machlokes Rishonim, the last pasuk, if it's part of the Shira, Oz Yasher is for sure part of the Shira. When the Baal Korah says the Shira out of the Sefer Torah, our minig is to say it with a different nigun, not like the regular trup with the trup, but with a nigun. So there are different minhagim. I would say the kamat. I think the common minig is you read the whole Oz Yasher with the trop from beginning till end. There are those that was the minig in Preshborg, that's the minig in the Letterman Shmuel Peter Chazanish. I was actually telling over to my chavrusa last night. He's a Baal Korah, so he said before I even told him this, he said he has the minig to lay in taka only the psukim that say Hashem. Means the first minig is to lay in the whole Oz Yasher with the nigun. Second minig Preshborg in other places is just psukim that have the Shem Hashem. And then there's a third minig that only the psukim that have a double word. Ki goy go micha moicha be'elam Hashem. If there's a double word, then you say the with a nigun. So Atkan is Benegeya, the Shira, relevant to the Kriyas HaTorah we'll have tomorrow morning. That's the discussion, Lagabi the Kriya. Now we'll move into the Oz Yasher that we say every single day. The Shira, we say every day the Shira. Why do we say the Shira every single day? The Makor is a Zoyer. The Zoyer says, the Pasuk says, Vayoimru Leimor. Vayoimru, they said then, Leimor, to say, like the Lashon Even Ezer, B'chol Dor V'Dor. They should always say the Shira. So therefore we say Oz Yasher every single day. The Zoyer continues on, and I'll bring it, it's more Ba'arichas in the Sefer Haredim. The Sefer Haredim, he was Shamas in the Arizal Shul, and he put out a Sefer on the Taryag mitzvahs, but he goes, I'll say the Eivarim, he goes with the mitzvahs, I'll say the Raisa, the Rabbanon. So he says that when they said the Shira, Klal Yisrael said the Shira when they went out of the Yam, based on what the Medrash says, they said it B'koil, B'simcha Rabbah, and the Medrash says Vayasa Moshe. Moshe, the Medrash says Moshe took them away from Chatoim, which means since they said the Shira B'simcha, they had Mechilas Avoinus. Moshe Rabbeinu took them away from their Avoinus because they said Shira. And because Kol Mi Shenas Lo Neis, and he says Shira Moichel HaKalvanosav. Therefore, every day, Vayoimru Leimer, says the Zohar, if we say the Shira the way the Shira was said B'Shas Yitzias Mitzrayim when they went through the Yam, every single day we'll have Mechilas Avoinus based on, just like there was Mechilas Avoinus then, there's Mechilas Avoinus every single day. But you have to say it the way it was said. The Chidah, just to quote the Lashon, V'yitzayir b'daitoi ki'ilu oimid b'yabasha b'seich hayam. When a person says this morning, when you go and you say Oz Yasher, or if you davened already tomorrow, when you say as Yasher, a person should be Mitzayir when he's saying as if he just went through. The Mitzvah were chasing after him, surrounded from all four sides. They went into the Yam. Be Mitzayir, that's what you're saying as Yasher. Two Nekudas, 2 pointers, Benegeya, saying the Shira every day. One is, we say every day the Shira, the Pasuk, Micha Moicha Be'elam Hashem. So what goes weiter? Micha Moicha Be'elam Hashem. So is it Micha Moicha Be'elam Hashem, Micha Moicha Neder B'Kodesh, or Mika Moicha? Mika Moicha. Why is it Mika Moicha? So the Beis Yosef says, Be'etzem al pi trop, they should both be, just like the first one is Micha Moicha, the second one should also be Micha Moicha. Why is it Mika Moicha? Because it would sound, if you say Micha Moicha Be'elam Hashem, Micha Moicha, Micha would sound like Hashem Micha. And that's an elbow in a Gnai HaKadosh Baruch Hu to say Hashem Micha. Micha was the one that took the Shem Hashem, beginning of this week's Parsha, Moshe Rabbeinu. They were going at him at Tzrayim, and they needed a Roina Shel Yosef. These interesting Gemara cited that Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't find it, and he went to the Nilas and he said, "You made us a shvua that we should take out your Aron. I don't know where you are. Either you come up, if we're not, we're menukim in a shvua." Interesting, the Gemara. But it's brought that Moshe Rabbeinu threw the Shem Hashem, and that's how the Aron came up. Micha grabbed that Shem Hashem, and he took it through the Yam. And he used that Shem Hashem to throw into the Egel, to make the Egel. So Mamela, that's one halacha. Micha Moicha Be'elam Hashem, Mika Moicha, not to say Micha Moicha, because then it would sound like Hashem Micha. So Micha Moicha. Another din. I hear. So he's saying, why does it have to be that, Micha? Interesting shaila. We say in the Shira, Salulu Kaiferes B'mayim Adirim. What's Salulu Kaiferes B'mayim? Salulu Kaiferes, they sunk in the water, Kaiferes, like lead. B'mayim, what's Adirim? So Pashtas you learn, Adirim is strong. What's strong? Pashtas was the strong waters. Pashtas, I don't mean to say Pashtas. The Gemara in Menachos has a whole back and forth. Yavi Adirim, referring to Hashem, to Klal Yisrael. And then the Gemara calls the Mitzrim Adirim strong from this pasuk. Tzolu Kaiferes B'mayim, who sank in the water? Adirim, the Mitzrim. Therefore, says the Shari Tshuva, the Pri Begadim, brought a Mishnah Brura, that you should pause. Tzolu Kaiferes B'mayim, who sunk in the water? Adirim, the Mitzrim. And the Trop also, these are Tipcha, when you lean it, Tzolek Eferes B'mayim, and then Adirim. So it's not Tzolek Eferes B'mayim Adirim, but it's Tzolek Eferes B'mayim Adirim. What were you going to say, Menachem?
Now, watch for translate it. Translate the mighty sank deep in the water. The mighty sank deep in the water. The mighty, which means the mighty, the Mitzrim. So that's the Gemara, which means the Mitzrim were the ones who sank in the water. And therefore you should say it, you should be a half-sek. Me'idach, what do you say? So take a look. Makoyles Mayim Rab Madirim. Makoyles Mayim Rab. But it's not, if I remember correctly, it's not talking about the Mitzrim, it's talking about the water itself. Together with the...
It's referring to the water.
It's Taka. It's that. Where is that? We have to take a look. We'll take a look afterwards. However, the Rashbam Meidach, the Rashbam learns that Adirim is going on the water. Interesting. The Rashbam says, who's the Adirim? Mayim Adirim. How is the Shira said Alayam? And we'll see it's an Afkamina Bismanenu also. These are three-way machloikis in the Gemara. This is the Gemara in Saited Aflamed Amid Beis. Three shitas. The first shita, Shitas Rabbi Akiva, there are Moshe Rabbeinu who said it, every pasuk, and Klal Yisrael after each pasuk said Ashira Lashem. That's shita number one. Shita number two is that Moshe Rabbeinu said the pasuk,
That's Rabbi Eliezer. Moshe Rabbeinu said the pasuk, and then after Moshe Rabbeinu said the pasuk, Klal Yisrael said the pasuk. And then there's the third Shita from Nehemiah, that Moshe Rabbeinu started the pasuk, and Klal Yisrael followed after and said with Moshe Rabbeinu the pasuk. First Shita is that Klal Yisrael only said Ashira Lashem after each pasuk. Second Shita is that Moshe Rabbeinu said the pasuk, Klal Yisrael said the pasuk afterwards. Third Shita is that they said it together. Moshe Rabbeinu just started it. Benegeya, the Likutei Marich says that there are places that have the minig that when you say the Shira every single day, some have the minig to say it pasuk by pasuk. Just heard yesterday that in Amunas Yisrael they have that minig, even every single day, pasuk by pasuk. But it means a chazan says, but could be it's the other Shita, but a pasuk by pasuk. The chazan starts and then they continue afterwards, or to say it together. Moshe Rabbeinu started and then Klal Yisrael said it together, so here as well. And it's brought that the Goyin Shvi Shal Pesach used to say the Shira, used to say it pasuk by pasuk. So it's interesting. There's a machlekes how the Shira was said then, and the Mela how it's said now. There are those that also have the minig. Now, Shabbos Pashas B'Shalach, Shabbos Shira also, to say it pasuk by pasuk, or at least to say the Shira together. One more nekuda, we'll try to make this fast. The Aruch HaShulchan asks a question: how does the Shira Oz Yasher come in to the Psukei de Zimra? Not so much how does it come in, but rather why wouldn't it be first, before Psukei de Zimra? Psukei de Zimra is Psukim of Tehillim, is Ksuvim, and Oz Yasher is Psukim of the Torah. Why is it not first? That's what the Aruch HaShulchan Shaila, and the Aruch HaShulchan says that if you take a look, the Rambam, when the Rambam says where Oz Yasher should be, Shitas HaRambam is that Oz Yasher is after Yishtabach. So it's not after the Ksuvim, it's actually in between Yishtabach and Yotzer Oyer. That's a different reason why it's there up here, Zoyer, but it's not that these first Ksuvim and then Oz Yasher. Rav Moshe Feinstein asks the question a little bit different. How does Oz Yasher come in to the Psukei de Zimra? Rav Moshe Feinstein is in Dibros Moshe in Psachem Perek Yud Anaf Daled, and he says in Baruch She'amar we say, what are we coming to say? The praises of V'shirei David Avdecha. If we're saying of V'shirei David Avdecha, how does this come in? Oz Yasher is not V'shirei David; it's actually Psukim of the Torah. So Rav Moshe says, and he also says, if you go into Yichavoid, these psukim also that are not from Tehillim. So he says, if you take a look, the Rambam Taka doesn't have not Oz Yasher, and he Taka doesn't have the pasuk, the psukim that are not from Tehillim, because we say V'shirei David. Lamai says Mayashav, and he says V'shirei David. Why is it V'shirei David? Because most of the psukim are V'shirei David. The Aruch HaShulchan asks, why does Oz Yasher come in, which means it should be first. Rav Moshe says it shouldn't come in b'chlal. So that he says most of the psukim are psukim of Tehillim. How does Nishmas come in? Tomorrow we say Nishmas. How does that come in? So he explains that Nishmas is part of Yishtabach. Nishmas is part of Yishtabach. So just like Yishtabach, the bracha of Yishtabach is not psukim of Tehillim. Nishmas is part of Yishtabach. Al pi this, you could be masber, be meyashiv, even Oz Yasher also. Why? The Torah says that from Vayevorach David till after Oz Yasher, our merum is the 15 praises, the 15 shvachim that we say in Yishtabach are in Vayevorach David through Oz Yasher. So therefore, just like Rav Moshe says that the Nishmas comes in because it's part of Yishtabach, so Vayevorach David, Oz Yasher is also an introduction to Yishtabach that has the shvachim. You're going to ask me, what are the other psukim at the end of Oz Yasher? We have other psukim, which are psukim in Avadia, Zechariah, Devarim, Ki Lashem Alucha Moshe Bagoyim, Vayil Hashem Lamelech Hakol Aretz. And we mentioned earlier that we mentioned earlier if the last pasuk is part of the Shira, Kivasas Parei. L'chayra from here, you see it's brought in the Siddur, why is it not a Raya? So all these psukim at the end of Oz Yasher, which are not from the Oz Yasher, are not from Tehillim. The reason it's brought, the Beis Yosef is Meirich to explain that these 18 times Hashem in Oz Yasher, and 18 times Hashem, each Yud Kei Vav Kei is 4 letters, so it's Hashem Ayin Beis, 72. But if you take a look in Oz Yasher, we don't have 18 times Hashem, so therefore you have to have the psukim. There's a lot of different ways that Acheshvan Hashem Yimlich twice. Do you count it? Which psukim? Some don't have some of the psukim. You look at the Yekis, take out some of the don't have the psukim. But that's just bekitzer. These end psukim are really to be mashlim that we should have 18 times Shem Hashem. So just to sum up what we have over here, that the Shira, the end pasuk is a machlokes. The beginning is pretty clearly Oz Yasher as part of it. One last pointer. There's a Shaila asked. The Magen Avram asked the Shaila on Aser Simei Tshuva. We say Shira Malis Mamakim. Nusach Sfar, Nusach Ashkenaz. Some say it later, after Yishtabach. So the Shaila is asked the Magen Avram. L'chayr it's a hefsek. The Yerushalmi says. The Yishalmi says, "Asach bein yishtabach leYotzer oir averi biyad." They say, how could you say this Shira Malis? How could you say it? So the Emek Bracha explains that just like the Rambam says you could put Oz Yasher after Yishtabach, so too could you also put this Shira Malis after Yishtabach as well. Lamaisa, he's not so happy about it. He says Oz Yasher is a shvach, so you could put it. This is a tefillah and a bakasha. So we spoke, the first part was really handling more the Kriyas HaTorah Shaboy and Halachah and Afkamin in how to write the Sefer Torah. And then we went through a few dinim in the Kriya of every single day. First of all, you say Bashir V'Zimra, Moichel and Kal Avanoisav, and also we saw Micha Moicha, and B'Mayim, Adirim, if it's part of the Mayim or not part of the Dirim. Have a good Shabbos.